The letter came in a bland white envelope. No warning, no knock on the door. Just a folded notice with bold red letters and a fine so ridiculous I had to read it 3 times. $1,000, noise violation, excessive volume during daytime hours. My wife stood frozen in the kitchen, holding it like it was a death sentence. "Is this a joke?" she asked, her voice shaking. Number, it wasn't. You ever get hit with something so unfair, so absurd, that your body doesn't know whether to laugh or throw something through a wall? That was me. And if you've ever been pushed around by someone with a clipboard and a little bit of power, stick around, because I didn't just fight back. I rewrote the rules they used to hurt us. Hit like if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare. Subscribe. This story goes deep. It started that Tuesday morning. My wife, Elena, had been cleaning. Nothing crazy, just her usual Saturday playlist while she mopped the floor. We live in a 2-story detached house in a quiet cul-de-sac. No one shares walls. No one complained, at least not to us. But 2 days later, boom, a $1,000 fine, courtesy of the HOA president, Diane. If you've never dealt with someone like Diane, let me paint a picture. Mid-50s, stiff smile, always walking her little dog at the same time every day, clipboard in hand like she's preparing a SWAT raid on your lawn. She's the kind of woman who knocks on your door to remind you your trash bin is 2 inches out of regulation. And she hates Elena. Always has. I don't know if it's because my wife's Latana or because she once dared to paint our front door a shade Diane called too warm for the community tone. Maybe both. I called the HOA office. They directed me to Diane's personal number. I should have known better. She answered like I'd interrupted her at a state dinner. "This is Diane, president of the Greenridge Estates HOA. Hi, this is Mark from 224 Briarwood. We just received a fine. Yes, excessive noise. Music loud enough to be heard from the sidewalk. Multiple complaints." Multiple? From who? What time? "I'm not at liberty to share complainant names," she snapped. It was 11:32 a.m. on Sunday. Elena was cleaning the kitchen. No party, no guests. We have no shared walls. This is absurd. "Mr. Collins, I'm not going to argue. It's done. If you wish to dispute, you may write a formal appeal. Processing fee is $75. $75. To dispute a $1,000 fine." I bit my tongue. "Thanks," I said, and hung up before I said what I really wanted to. Elena was still sitting on the couch, staring at the notice like it might bite her. "I don't want to cause trouble," she whispered. "If we pay it, will they just leave us alone?" That's when it clicked. That's what they count on. That you'll shut up, pay, and move on. That you'll feel grateful for being allowed to live in your own home. I looked at my wife, humiliated, small, silenced, and I made a decision. We weren't going to pay. Not this time. And Diane? She was about to find out she picked the wrong house. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the fine, because of what it did to my wife. Elena's not loud. She's not confrontational. She's the kind of person who brings banana bread to new neighbors, who apologizes when someone bumps into her. Seeing her so deflated over something she didn't do, it hit different, and Diane knew it. That's what pissed me off most. She wasn't just enforcing rules. She was flexing control. The next morning, I walked the block. Casual, like I was out for air. Just enough to say hi to a few neighbors. Nobody mentioned the music. Nobody looked annoyed. But when I brought it up, even lightly, the reactions were telling. "Didn't hear a thing," said Mr. Lin from across the street. "Honestly, I thought the place was empty that day." "She fined you?" said Ashley, 2 doors down. "Ugh, that woman's out of control. She once threatened to fine us for having too many pumpkins in October." I kept going, knocked on the Winters' door. Older couple, always in their garden. Mrs. Winters leaned in like I'd asked for state secrets. "Diane's been targeting people for months. Ever since she became president again. Fines for lawn height, mailbox colors, even tried to ban wind chimes." "Why?" She shrugged. "Control, maybe." or boredom, or both. She fined our grandson last year for chalk drawings on the sidewalk, called it unauthorized public expression. By the time I got back home, my phone buzzed. A neighbor I barely knew, Mike, had texted, "Hey, heard about the fine. You're not the first. Want to talk?" We met that night on his porch. Cold beer, low voices. She fined my wife for unauthorized car repairs because I was checking the oil in the driveway. I paid it. Most do, but it's getting worse. Why doesn't anyone push back? She is the HOA, president, treasurer, head of the review board. Her buddies control the voting. Nobody wants to rock the boat or get hit with another fine. Can residents run? He raised an eyebrow. Technically, yeah, but you'd need to show up, be present, know the system. That was it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted leverage. Next day, I downloaded the HOA bylaws. Dry stuff, like reading a tax code written by a control freak. But buried in the legalese, I found gold. Any homeowner could request financial reports. Any homeowner could attend board meetings. And, with enough signatures, any homeowner could run for office. I started digging. Invoices, budgets, vendor contracts. I requested everything. At first, the HOA couldn't locate the files. Then they needed more time. Finally, Diane emailed me directly. "Mr. Collins, I see you've been quite busy. I assure you our operations are fully compliant. I would urge you to focus on your own property rather than interrogating our systems." Interrogating? Lady, you just guaranteed I'd keep going. I filed a formal petition to attend the next monthly board meeting. Publicly, on the record. According to bylaws, they couldn't deny me, not without violating their own charter. Diane replied with a date and time. 7 p.m., Tuesday, Community Center. Elena looked nervous when I told her. "You sure you want to do this?" "No," I said, "but I'm tired of watching people like her get away with it." What I didn't tell her was that I had something more than just words ready, because by then, I had already found something in the documents. Something big. Diane wasn't just overreaching. She was spending HOA money on things that didn't add up. And if my math was right, she'd been doing it for years. The room was colder than expected. Not the temperature, but the energy. Community center, folding chairs, plastic tablecloths, a coffee urn in the corner that hadn't been cleaned in weeks, maybe years. 7 members of the HOA board sat behind a long table like royalty in cheap polos. Diane dead center, her nameplate turned slightly so you couldn't miss the bold serif font. Diane L. Kramer, president. I signed the attendance sheet. My hands weren't shaking, but my heart thudded a little harder than I liked. She looked up. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Collins," she said, "you're here as an observer, I assume?" I shook my head. "I'll be speaking." A ripple went through the board. One guy, Greg, I think, tried to hide a smirk. Diane's face hardened. "I hope it's relevant." "I think the residents will find it very relevant." They opened the meeting with their usual minutes, dry updates, and a vote on repainting the mailbox posts. I waited. Let them drone through their script. And when Diane finally opened the floor for comments, I stood. "My name is Mark Collins. I live on Briarwood Drive. I'd like to discuss financial activity over the past 18 months. Diane exhaled through her nose. "This is not a budget hearing." "No," I said. "It's an accountability hearing. I have copies of vendor invoices here for landscaping, pest control, and exterior cleaning services, all from the past year. I also have photos of the actual work completed, or in some cases, not completed." I dropped a folder on the table, 1 copy for each board member. Page 3. Let's start with the pressure washing invoice. $6,000 for monthly sidewalk cleaning. Now flip to the photo. That picture was taken yesterday. Same sidewalk, full of algae and bird droppings. Greg's smile disappeared. Another woman leaned in, whispering something to the person beside her. Diane raised her hand. "Mr. Collins." "Page 5, I said, ignoring her. $4,000 to Elite Greens LLC for landscaping. Except that company doesn't exist in the state business registry. There's no website, no phone number, just a P.O. box. Someone coughed in the back of the room. A woman near the door took out her phone and started recording. Diane's voice dropped a pitch. We're not obligated to respond to baseless insinuations. Page 8, I said. Vendor payment logs. Reimbursements issued directly to a personal checking account under the name L. Kramer. Diane, you wouldn't happen to have a relative who manages non-existent landscaping companies, would you? Silence. No gasps. Just silence. The board looked stunned. And Diane? She blinked once. Just once. Then she picked up her gavel and tapped it twice. This meeting is adjourned. You can't shut it down now, I said. Residents have a right to hear this. You are out of order. I stepped back, held up my hands. Sure. Let's not argue. I'll be submitting all of this to the audit committee and the Attorney General's HOA fraud task force, just so you're aware. She stood. You're bluffing. I printed 3 sets of copies. One's already in the mail. I left to the sound of whispers. People I didn't even know stopped me in the parking lot. Some were stunned, some furious. One man clapped me on the back and muttered, "About time." That night, Elena was waiting on the porch. I didn't even have to speak. She looked at me, saw the tension in my shoulders, and asked, "What now?" I smiled. Now we finish it. I'm running for HOA board. And this time I wasn't bluffing. HOA elections are usually boring. No campaign signs, no debates, no fireworks. Just a few residents checking a box because they feel guilty throwing the flyer straight into the trash. But not this time. Not after the meeting. Within a week, I'd posted the financial documents online, along with a detailed breakdown in plain English. I didn't go after Diane personally. I didn't have to. The numbers spoke for themselves. Money funneled to ghost vendors, inflated budgets, projects approved without bids. People were pissed. Finally, someone's doing something, said a neighbor I'd never even met before, handing me a cup of coffee on his porch. I printed flyers. Not flashy, not political, just a photo of our block and 5 bullet points. Transparent budgeting, real bidding on all work, end to arbitrary fines, recorded meetings. Every dollar, every line item, visible. I didn't need to trash Diane. I just needed to offer an alternative to what people already hated. 2 weeks later, the vote happened in the same room where Diane once ruled the HOA like a courtroom judge. This time, it was packed. Folding chairs lined the back wall. People stood in the hall. A few local reporters showed up. HOA corruption stories don't exactly make front page, but they draw clicks. We voted by secret ballot. Diane stood stiff behind the table, eyes darting like she was counting every paper by the weight of the envelope. When the final tally was read, I'd won. Not by a landslide, but enough. Enough to take a seat, enough to make change. Greg, one of Diane's lapdogs, lost his spot too. 2 other board members, who had clearly seen the writing on the wall, stayed quiet, nodded, and tried to act like they'd been neutral the whole time. Diane didn't say a word. She stood, collected her nameplate, and walked out without acknowledging a single person. I didn't celebrate. Not then. Because winning a vote isn't the end. It's just the door opening. First order of business, a full forensic audit. We brought in an outside firm, verified every invoice, every payment, every discrepancy. What we found confirmed what I already knew. Diane had been siphoning HOA funds to a shell company connected to her cousin. Over $30,000 in bogus services in less than 2 years. The board unanimously voted to press charges. We rewrote the bylaws. No board member could control more than 1 internal committee. All meetings had to be recorded and shared with homeowners. All fines now required third-party validation, and residents could appeal at no cost. And the best part? We restructured the fee tiers. Residents with multiple policy violations over a 12-month period would move to a higher contribution bracket, something Diane had used to punish people silently for years. Only now, it was reviewed by the entire board and made public. Diane's new monthly fee? Double what she paid before. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. But I did take Elena out for dinner that night. She wore a red dress she hadn't worn in years. And while she laughed over wine and pasta, I realized something. This wasn't just about a fine. It was about dignity, about not letting someone with a clipboard and a sour attitude bully good people just because they think they can. And now that power, that abuse, was gone, replaced by something better: fairness. A few weeks later, I was walking the dog down Briarwood when I spotted Diane in her yard, wrestling with a bag of mulch. She saw me, looked away, no wave, no fake smile, just silence. I didn't stop, didn't say a word. She wasn't president anymore, just another homeowner now, with the same rules as everyone else, same dues, same oversight, and a brand new monthly bill that looked a whole lot heavier than the bag in her hands. Back at home, Elena had the speakers on, not blaring, just comfortably loud. Some jazz spilling through the kitchen window while she chopped vegetables, humming to herself like nothing in the world could touch her. It had taken months to get back to that sound. Not the music, her, that quiet confidence, the freedom to just live in your own home without fear of being harassed for it, the feeling that you're allowed to exist without asking for permission. I stepped into the kitchen and kissed her cheek. "You're playing it kind of loud," I teased. She smirked. "Think someone's gonna find me?" "I'd love to see them try." We laughed, not the tired kind, the real kind, the kind you earn. Later that night, I got an email from a guy in another neighborhood. He'd read about our HOA battle on a local blog, said his HOA president was pulling similar stunts, asked how we organized, how we challenged fines, how we ran for the board. I wrote back with everything I had. No gatekeeping, no grandstanding, just steps, facts, tools. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's this: bullies count on silence. They thrive when people feel small, isolated, afraid to push back. They hide behind rules, procedures, codes, hoping no one will ever read the fine print or call their bluff. But when you do, when you stand up calmly with receipts and patience and backbone, they fold. Not always quickly, not always cleanly, but eventually they do. That HOA isn't perfect now. We still argue over budgets and fence heights. People still grumble about dues. But at least now we argue out loud, on record, with votes and transparency. At least now, no one fears the mailbox. And when a new neighbor moves in and asks, "So what's the deal with the HOA here?" I just smile and say, "You're going to be fine." Because now we all are.